Good morning to everyone, and good morning to my co-panelists. And yes, I'll stand on existing protocols like those before me. Say good morning to everyone. Yes, Ghana is still regarded as a peaceful country. It's the most stable politically in the sub-region, a region characterized by violence, extremist violence in the last 13 years. We have been ranked as the most peaceful country in West Africa, in Africa, and second in West Africa. But to stop there is to ignore the growing serious challenges of insecurity that we are currently battling with. As the previous speakers have mentioned, have acknowledged in their presentations. And as we speak now, we are ambushed in the south by maritime piracy that is actually at an all-time high. Maritime piracy has descended from the Horn of Africa that a decade ago was a big menace. It has descended down towards the coast of the Gulf of Guinea. And for a fact, in the first half of this year, piracy attacks, the region recorded the highest globally. And we're ambushed in the north by the onslaught of violent extremism. Violent extremism is descending towards coastal states from the Sahel, from Mali, in Niger, Chad. Now it's very, very pervasive in Burkina Faso. 5 years ago, we didn't have what we're having in Burkina Faso happening. And several other developments within the region, especially close to our borders, have led many to conclude that we are actually sitting on a time bomb and that we've become more vulnerable to violent extremism than ever. Specific to Ghana, before August 2015, the idea of terrorism happening here on our space was a very, very remote possibility in the psyche of the Ghanaian population. We didn't have it featured in mainstream media discussions about the likelihood that there will be terrorist attacks here or would suffer it in any form. Unfortunately, in August 2015, a young guy who left here, a product of KNUST, left home to join ISIS and sent a message back to his parents, acknowledging his new affiliation and his new cause. That is when it alarmed the Ghanaian public about the reality that this could be happening here, the vulnerabilities could be existing here, or vulnerable young people could be attracted to these ideals coming from elsewhere. And by the beginning of the year, 2016, actually we understood that he was killed in Syria. In the middle of the year, we had some arrests made in some parts of northern Ghana. People who engage in terrorist training or videos in some bush in a place called Jantong Jabashe in the north. We had several other incidents that made us appear to be vulnerable to violent extremism. We had, the Gitmotu came in here, provoked quite a lot of discussion here, and many described that as, a situation that also made us, susceptible to these ideals in here. We had the beginning of 2018, arrests made here in Accra, 3 young men, of course, involving one older person, with handheld grenades. And one of them was believed to have had some experience in the insurgency in Libya and Mali. Before the end of 2018, our organization, the West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism, had encountered at least 22 individuals who were vulnerable to radicalization, who were having contacts with the extremist groups. And by the beginning of the following year, we had stopped 23 individuals from leaving to join ISIS. What are the details? Of course, it's not everything I could say here. But one very striking situation that we often cite is a young guy who was radicalized over time, largely on cyberspace, recruited to join ISIS. And just the day before he was meant to depart to Syria, through Agadez, Burkina Faso, and Agadez, he watched a program on preventing radicalization and violent extremism here in Ghana on local television. And I'm happy to say it was on TV3, a program he used to have called ICRA. And that was what made the difference. He declined to go. He searched for us. Eventually, we got in touch with him, and we discovered astonishing stuff. the things he was involved in, and it alarmed all of us, those of us working in this space, that previously we didn't think that this was the extent of the threat we were dealing with in this space. So generally, this is a reality here, and it's a reality within, in terms of the vulnerabilities that could lead individuals to engage in violent extremism. It is a reality externally, because we're seeing the region increasingly involved in this. And all the analysis point to the fact that the threat is descending to coastal states. What are the vulnerabilities? What are the drivers? We are looking at issues of pervasive youth unemployment. Youth unemployment is the single biggest factor in many parts of the region. And in many ways, people describe what is happening in Mali, Chad, and Niger, Burkina Faso as a product of, the frustration of young people who have lost faith in their leaders' capacity to provide them with what we call the entitlements of citizenship. And so they're looking to other options. And, Janine and other terrorist groups are providing that. A void left by the state, they're giving people $300, $500, a motorbike, and a gun. And it's great cause for them. And so these things, largely, is a product of that situation. We're looking at pervasive issues of conflicts. We have each chieftaincy and ethnic conflicts as the single biggest source of insecurity here, in the last, say, 30 years. It has been the biggest source of fatalities in this country. And we have a report that just came out, by the Global Terrorism Index, by the Institute of Economic and Peace. And it pointed to the fact that 73% of terrorist fatalities during the year 2019 came from countries that were experiencing conflicts. And so conflict is one of the single biggest drivers now. At the time we experienced a peak in terrorist violence in West Africa in about 2014, we have 7,200 fatalities. It didn't come from countries that were experiencing conflicts. It came from, where the ideology that motivated young people to engage in were very rife. So you see a changing dynamic, the fluidity of terrorism in dealing, with the region. And so we need to look out for things like that. We have issues of marginalization here. And we have several other security factors. Now I've got 2 minutes. Several security factors that make young people very vulnerable. And we're seeing a change in the security profile of this country. Whilst we continue to proudly say we're a stable, peaceful country, the security dynamics and profile of Ghana has changed significantly. We're seeing, and I acknowledge, ACP talking about the fact that, look, daylight robberies are now more prominent than before, in Hollywood style, involving prominent people. We're seeing things relating to kidnapping that hitherto were not a common feature here. They are happening, involving high-profile individuals. We're seeing pervasive involvement of young people in cyberspace. There's a huge illicit economy going on the cyberspace, and we are unable to do anything about it. If we crack the whip on cyberspace, the crime will move to, on space here, and we will see it manifest in very, very dreadful forms. And so we need to look at it collectively, because all these things in combination, they lead young people, drive them towards radicalization. And radicalization is the single biggest factor that leads young people and any other demography to engage in terrorism. And hopefully we'll discuss more during the discussion. Thank you. Thank you
very much, Mr. Mukthar Mumuni. Thank you very much. And at this point, let's have a big round of applause for our speakers.